Thursday afternoon, Stansted Airport, just about to board the flight to Malta to interview and talk to Philippa Bianchi, that lovely lady, great portrait artist. I'm really looking forward to this. Enjoying a cup of coffee with Eric. Cheers. I'm so happy to be here in Malta in this beautiful island, and I'm so privileged to be talking to a most charming and talented young lady. A lady who paints the portraits of the rich and famous, but there's much more to find, much more to discover from Philippa Bianchi. Philippa, thank you so much for taking the time and welcoming us here at your home. Philippa, you know, you're a little bit of a princess in the nicest possible way, and your heritage goes back to King Charles V, I think. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yes, on my mother's side,
okay.
My mother's family are Maltese, from a very old family, and it can be traced back to Charles V when he was actually the king of Spain, but also in charge of the Two Sicilies, which was also Malta at the time. And he gave my family a title, and we have had that title ever since, and alongside it was a lot of responsibility towards the country, in particular bringing grain to feed the Knights of the Order of St. John and also the nation at large. We have, through our family history, managed to trace a lot of the history of the country. So I feel, you know, there's this wonderful heritage, which sort of, comes with my mother's side, which I'm very proud of.
And actually does place some responsibility upon you. Do you have a title of some type, or?
Do you know, I don't, but I feel that the greatest responsibility was the actual religious side of the title, because there were a lot of knights in my family, and to become a knight, you would have to do a lot of good, and so there is a sense of huge accountability and duty, and also this sense of faith, keeping a strong faith through the family and remaining an upright family, if that even that saying even exists. But alongside all of that, you had to conduct yourself in a particular
And did you have to do something to become a knight, something religious or something, do a conquest of some type, or what is the criteria for becoming a knight?
Well, in the old days, the Knights Hospitallers were they were doctors actually, and they were helping people who were on a pilgrimage to treat them on their journey, to help the sick, to visit shrines, to visit Jerusalem. But now being a knight is very different.
Okay.
However, there are still certain criteria. So you have to do charity, and you must do pilgrimage, and so these titles aren't just bestowed on.
So in a way, of course, your great lineage of artists in the family. You know, I don't know, is that some sort of reincarnation, or is this some, because you have your great grandfather, I think, yes, Giuseppe Carli,
yes,
whose paintings adorn every church in Malta.
Yes,
and
that's
there are others
right.
in your family. So what is this magic happening?
We had a lot of art in my family,
Yes.
on mum's side, but on granny's side, not on grandpa's. So it actually came through her line, and again, that is an incredibly enriching realm to have been brought up in, this which surrounded me.
Yeah.
Certainly on.
But it's not just, you know,
certainly at
ordinary
home.
paintings. I mean,
No,
yeah.
it precisely because it wasn't just at home, but also this art was adorning most of the churches, a lot of the churches here in Malta, particularly altarpieces. So even in places of worship, I would be looking at my great grandfather's painting of the Madonna, and that had a profound influence on me, I think.
Influence, yes, but talent, how? You know, I'm influenced by great cricketers, but I can't play the way they play.
Well, I have an auntie who's very in the same line, who's very artistic and has done wonderfully in her artistic career. My mother has it too, and then she must have recognized it in me and decided, well, I'm going to make sure my daughter's going to enjoy this and do what she can, because she really encouraged me to paint since before I could walk.
Yeah, but did it happen automatically? When did you discover this? When you were 1 year old, or?
Well, my mother discovered it. I mean, I still have pictures of me painting with paintbrushes practically in a pram, in a sort of one of these chairs. I must have been 2. I couldn't walk, and I was painting, and my mother always had a paintbrush in my hand, or a coloring book, or a crayon. So because she had it in herself, she must have recognized it in me, and I am indebted to my mother for really pushing that.
But you had the seeds of the talent, really. I mean, it seems like it just...
That's what she calls it, yes.
It's remarkable. Then, of course, you also go back to your paintings, but you're also very much of an international type person. You know, you're young, but yet you lived in many countries and you studied in different parts of the world. And
well, I think by nature of coming from a small island, you know, where we're 17 miles by 9.
Yeah. Beautiful island, though.
So beautiful, absolutely, an absolute gem, and again with such an incredible cultural heritage. I think that by nature of coming from a small island, I think there is this curiosity to travel and to, you know, go beyond our border and see what else is there. And I certainly, that's one thing, but also it started very young because my parents sent me off to school when I was 11 years old.
You studied in England?
Yes.
And Italy as well?
I studied, well, first I went to school in England when I was 11 because my father, well, of course my mother was not happy about her 3 little kiddies going off to schools so far away.
Yeah, and so young.
and so young, yes. But I think it was a very, very enriching thing to go to suddenly be immersed into a completely different culture. Well, I felt it was completely different. Yes. Certainly the English are not too different from the Maltese because we became so anglicized.
I think you probably mean social culture.
But yes, and as a child you feel the differences, and it in a way it learns, I think from a young age, it shows you how to adapt and just kind of work it out for yourself, and do all of that, which I'm grateful for.
And you like international food, and I read somewhere you like the occasional hot curry. Yes,
I do. I like variety and change. I think that's just my nature. Yeah. But no, ever since that first flight to school in England, I have not stopped catching planes. I've lived in 5 different countries.
And you continue to travel even now, I know.
And now I've just come back from a 3-week tour where I visited 7 countries. But I do seem to always somehow be attracted to that life of traveling around a lot, and I find it stimulating. I don't know if it's visually or artistically, but I feel that I need to constantly have some kind of new, fresh experience or change, or yes. And
I think let's go back to your paintings, and just to give people a flavor. You know, you seem to just paint the very, very rich and famous people, you know. Pope Benedict's paintings are so amazing.
Thank you.
And I know you're working on Dr. Joseph Mascat's painting too. I mean, why do you choose portrait painting?
It's not Dr. No, it's Lawrence Gonzi, who was the former Prime Minister. No, not at all. It all was it was such an organic evolution. I studied I went to a very traditional school of painting in Florence, an atelier in the very old style, and there they taught us how to paint with integrity, how to understand our material, how to respect it, how to know where the pigment came from, and they were all purists in this school, and it astonished me, and I really have so much respect for what they do in this school, and I felt that I wanted to create very polished works, finished and polished works, because I was very young and I was looking at a lot of contemporary work, and of course I thought I wanted to create something very, very different, which was classic, but just provide to a client something quite similar to
the painter Paul Klee said, one eye sees and the other one feels. And I know you were telling me about how important it is for you to understand the subjects you're painting.
Yes.
Why is that? I mean, why not just paint from a photograph?
During our training, we were just taught about how to paint a head or how to paint a body. But I think once you are in the real world and dealing with people on a very one-to-one basis, you must start going much further than that. They're not just a head, they're not just a bust or a, and it's about. I think I was questioning whether to really try to make psychological paintings, yes. And of course we all loved Rembrandt because of his psychology, okay. And there's so much about the expression, but I think that I was more interested in creating a collage of different signifiers to pull out the character of the person that I was painting. And because of my travel, I could never ask people to come to my studio and I would have one chair or one curtain or one window. I would say, well, it's just easier for me to come to you, and suddenly I would be introduced to all their textures and colors and clothing. And
I mean, do you rummage through cupboards?
I turn the houses upside down.
You can't
I'm
do
not
that.
sure I'm a very, no.
But I was trying to understand this point. Is it that the feelings you get and then you express those feelings automatically, not automatically, but instinctively in your paintings, or you actually look for signals and signs, you pick them up and then try and introduce them into your paintings, if you see what I'm trying to say? Is it a feel that comes out when you paint, or is it a conscious calculation of certain colors and things that you see that you wish to introduce into the painting?
It's, I think it's a balance of both the instinct and the calculation.
Okay.
But I think so much of this religious, baroque, ostentatious, detailed, visual ancestry that I had growing up has come out in my work through, obviously Baroque is very overloaded, and we like all our, some of our Madonnas even have gold, even have crowns stuck on, or we like all our added extras. And so I started giving a lot of importance to the surroundings, the background of these figures, and what they could say about the figure. And what I wasn't actually really doing was ever really thinking about the poses and displays, and of how I was seating, my subjects. Yes.
But when you look at your paintings, at first glance they look like actually pictures. They're so polished and so real, but they have more than a picture. And I know there's another passion that you wish to introduce in the pictures, and in a sense, of course, you're saying what probably Jonathan Swift said. He said, "Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others." I think you're trying to bring that into your paintings.
Yes.
And particularly the point you were making about your feelings that you want to portray about women in this.
Yes, I began to find my pictures very decorative, and I was criticized for creating too photographic works, and they became very decorative. So there was the tapestry and the carpet and lots of textures. And I was having a lot of fun, I recently went through a very personal struggle, and I began to really look at my pictures and see, well, how am I putting real meaning into these works? And for me, I visited so many galleries and museums trying to find myself, and in so doing, I realized that most of the pictures that I was looking at were portrayals of women, and I was really angered by most of these portrayals. I wasn't connecting with them. I wasn't. Of course, I grew up with the Madonna, who's this incredibly empowered, majestic figure of a woman. Even at home, actually, my mother's got a sort of 7-foot, full-length Madonna in this incredible robe. And I think, again, this really has had, and I think because of this, it's just been echoed through my life. And I found that portrayals of women were really,
Subservient.
Feeding my curiosity. Why are they portrayed like this? Why are they? So I wanted to study this. So I went to do a master's degree on exactly why women have been portrayed the way they have been through history. particularly in visual imagery, and more recently in commercial imagery. And of course that angered me even more, not in the sense of, as sexual objects. I think that sexuality can be a very empowering thing for a woman, but in the sense of subordination and power. And this is what I was really, really looking at. And I began to look at my past portrayals of my female subjects. And there had already been small hints of, of me trying to empower these women and make them very aware of themselves, and not as passive sort of women to be looked at by a male gaze, but from a female point of view.
At least make them unequal in every respect.
Yes.
Now, do you want to give us an illustration? I was so fascinated by one of the paintings you're working on at the moment, and how you wanted to portray what you've been talking to me about.
Yes.
Because sometimes I think you were saying that you are also given problems to solve or to portray.
Yes.
Yet not, using your own talent to put a message through a painting.
Yes.
And I know you had a challenge recently. Do you want to talk through that?
Well, I've recently been very, very honored with the commission of the former Prime Minister of Malta for the Cabinet Room, and this is possibly going to be the most public of my well, besides the painting of Pope Benedict, and of course it has its purpose. It's a state commission, and it is meant to represent a leader, a man in power, and certainly that is exactly how I intend to portray him. But I sat with him, and I spent a bit of time with him, and we spoke about his real, this very personal side. And as a female painter, because there have been many male painters in our history, as a female painter, of course, I look at it from a very different point of view, in the sense that I think that I also wonder how his wife might have played a role in his life, and it does turn out that she was his rock and pillar. And he said that he went through the financial crisis. He went through the Libyan conflict. He didn't have it easy, and certainly he said that his faith and his wife were the strongest pillars in his.
So how did you introduce them into the painting? Because that's fascinating, in a subtle way. I think
there were the very obvious ways of sort of putting his wife into a picture frame and including it into some bookshelves, but I noticed that in his hand resting on the desk where his hand is resting is a very, very beautiful reflection of his hand, of course inverted, and I thought I would model the reflection of his wife's hand, and in so doing symbolize in a sense her supportive hand within his
partnership
and the partnership,
but that's really inspiring way to put it.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you write in your website or somewhere I read that you're so inspired by Michelangelo, but many painters are. And he said, the true work of art is but a shadow of the divine perfection. And the sort of talent that you have is almost divine. Because not many people can do what you do, and very few people can do what you do. I mean, do you find that is a little bit of a burden to carry, or do you think it's a blessing?
I don't. I personally, Feroz, I can't say that it's divine. I mean,
No, you don't.
of course,
You
for
can't
me, it's
answer
a
that.
lengthy, it's a process of study and technique, and you know, I think it took a lot of hard work to be able to paint how I paint now, and I still criticize myself immensely and have so much room for improvement, and I have so much maturing to do. But in terms of feeling the weight of responsibility, I really hope to do good with my painting. I really hope to give, and I think because of this religious background from my mother's side, there's always this sense of you must do what you can with what God has given you, and this sense of me just sitting around doing not very much with my life, just really sort of pedaling along, and of course my father's work ethic. I felt really the need to utilize or just do something with it in order to and not just for self-satisfaction, not just
although it's very satisfying to do that.
Although it is, but not just to express my emotions loosely on canvas and just, but to make a contribution. And it started off with trying to make a contribution somehow, but now it's become much deeper than that. Now I really want to try to tease out some what I feel are injustices and put them on canvas and just try to show them. Somehow I'm still working it out, but I feel that the subordination of women, especially in fashion magazines and commercial imagery. Recently, Dolce & Gabbana did this campaign where there were women just lying down, just naked, practically just lying down, whilst men were standing, just looking at. It's a very subordinate way of portraying women, and this idea of that women are helpless. And I think when you look at fashion advertisements, women often look very withdrawn or silly or out of control, or which of course is so different to what I grew up with, which was this very statuesque, majestic Madonna, you know, who. And so I'm struggling with it, and I want to somehow try to mend it, or try to.
Well, particularly young people are so influenced by the media and pick up on these things, and if you can correct that sort of thing at a young age, you know. Now, finally, if I can ask you a question, I know you're just a young person beginning your life, and achieved actually a huge amount already, and your path is set in the right sort of direction, at least in my view. Do you think that is your destiny, and are you in some way on your path to beginning that journey on your destination? Do you feel that the right path in your life?
Absolutely. I think there are two certainties in my life, and one is that I am a woman, and that the other is that I'm a painter. And I feel utterly destined by these two things, more so than anything else. That and the one thing through all the change and travel, the one thing that's always been by my side, wherever I've been, wherever I've lived, whomever I've been with, I find everything so transient, and the only thing that's always been by my side has been my canvases and my paintbrushes. And I think having an activity in life is a really blessing.
Philippa, it's been a privilege, and it's been a great pleasure learning about your painting and your philosophy and discovering you. Thank you for talking to me, Philippa.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.